So this video is going to be a bit different. I'm going to give a basic outline, a review of sorts, more of a warning about Black Desert. Now, it might seem a little harsh, but if you hear me out, I think most people are going to agree with my verdict on this game. Now, I'm going to just show the general gameplay so you can see what I'm talking about overall. So the first thing is the stat system in Black Desert is very artificial. It's not real. Like, I have all these stats. Look at these stats. They're beautiful. So many stats. The best stats you've ever seen. I know they're amazing. They're actually not that great. I have kind of like a meme-ish DP AP split setup. I also haven't even opened my free pen boxes. I have this one that I made, and then these two that I bought after I sold my other two. I made this one recently. I sold them all when they were 160 billion, and now they're like 100 billion because they got given away for free. You know, that's just market management. Number one way to progress in Black Desert is managing the market. But like, I have decent gear. This is entry level gear at this point. They practically give most of this away for free. They've given away 2 more pen Black Stars. I have the boxes somewhere. They also have given away a Dream Horse. They're giving away all this stuff to try to, like, they're trying to get more players in the door, which is why I'm making this video. I want the game to do well. I've got 10, 20,000 hours in this game. A lot of that is inactive time, but like a good amount of it is actively playing the game. And it's been kind of this thing of like, I'm invested this far. Originally, a lot of my friends were playing the game. They brought me into it. Over the years, I am one of the few that is left that actually logs in. Some of them log in once in a while, look at things, and then log back out. And I'm kind of at that point myself. I log in once in a while, check the newest content, realize that it hasn't really changed anything about the game, and then log out for another 6 months. I'll play their new classes, and that's about it. But they're really trying to bring people into the game because they're experiencing a loss of player base due to the design choices they have been going through. And I'll go through 2 of the biggest failures right here. These, you get a whole set of these. They're every slot, best in slot accessory. That's one of the, I'd actually, a little sidebar. There is no gear diversity at all in Black Desert. Everyone is using the exact same set of gear. You're all using your Fallen God set. There's the blue and the green version. Everyone's using the blue version. Like, there's a evasion version of the gloves and boots. And I don't think the helmet or the armor, either of these have evasion variants, but these 2 have evasion variants. No one uses them. Evasion is a meme stat. Evasion is boosted by 2 factors. One, your evasion stat, which can be negated by accessory. Or not accuracy. There we go. So you stack a stat that can be removed by an enemy just having accessories, or technically there's weapon additions you can put on that give you like 20 accessory as well as gems. People can just delete your gear's benefits. So accessory is a meme. little bit of gibberish there. Evasion is a meme because I always refer to it as accuracy, because in game it's just ACC and you know it's accuracy. Accuracy is very easily obtainable from accessories and crystals. So if you try to stack evasion, people will easily just get accuracy and negate your build. So everyone is going damage resistance right now. There might be like some outlier who has some very niche crystal setup that gets them just enough evasion they can still evade attacks more often than they. I doubt it. I like that. that speculative idea of a build does not hold up with my experience at all. So there's only one gear set, realistically, and that's the DR Fallen God set. The Charizard accessory set, which you can slot in accuracy if you really need to. Just saying, you can get a lot of it very, very low cost for every single one of these that you have equipped. I don't have anything slotted into them because I don't play the game enough anymore to keep ahead of those things, and people don't sell them because so few people are playing the game that the market is kind of dead. In order to get the gemstones to make these really amazing, you have to actually melt down the highest tier of accessory in the past. Not a lot of people are doing that. So, and very few people are doing it to sell those accessories. It's a just straight financial loss. So that's its own thing. But point being, there's one gear set that everyone will use, and I actually had one really bad piece of gear on. Just too lazy to go and replace this. I could make a Zard and put it on there. I have Zard earrings already. Let her try. You get a little extra bit of damage reduction here, and for what I do, it's more valuable. Now, that's not that's not an optional gear set. You can totally go this direction, it'll work. It's not worth the effort for me to upgrade. If I really wanted to upgrade my earrings, I would have, obviously, the grade 10 Zard earrings, and then I would just put in a single DP crystal, and I would have the DP bonus of these as well. I would have more than the DP bonus, and I would have more AP. That's not a divergent gear path you can totally invest in. It's if you don't really care about being at the top tier, this is totally fine. Now, the big problem with these, and these get replaced with sovereign weapons. One, these are not tradable ever. These aren't tradable either, but the rest of this doesn't show that it's tradable because it's all linked. It's shared between two characters. This is my little baby training character from the last. The character released before the last one is this guy. We just got Deadeye. She's kind of bad, to be honest. She doesn't play like a gunslinger. She looks like a gunslinger. Her attacks look like the attacks you'd see on a gunslinger, but the way she plays doesn't feel like a gunslinger. Very stationary skills. The skills that you don't want to be stationary, or that you do want to be stationary, are not stationary. They make you dash forward a little bit, which then takes enemies out. It's got its own problems. I doubt I'll review it ever, but in my opinion, this one was much better designed than that one. But anyway, each of these goes to grade 10. These are obviously grade 3. Now, the fact that they have to go all the way to 10, now they are better, the accessories are kind of an improvement. If you were trying to get grade 5 of the old accessories, they downgraded even if you protected them, or they just blew up and they were gone if you didn't protect them. They had a chance to downgrade. It's a whole thing. These ones don't have that chance to downgrade, but you do have to go through 10 stages of enhancement if you want to really have the best accessories possible. This is the only one that really matters, that you actually take it to the grade 10. Again, -4, because I don't have the motivation to do anything with it. It's quite expensive to hit them, and you got to hit them a lot to get them to grade 10. I actually have the money to do that, but I don't have the incentive to do it. Actually, before I start this, I'm gonna go ahead and we'll show off the sea content since it just spawned. prepare for the most amazing ocean content you've ever seen in the game, online, offline, fantasy, reality, dream, actual experience. Just prepare yourself. It's going to be amazing. Where's the boss? I see people shooting. I don't see the boss. I just leave this boat out here. If I ever want to actually do this boss fight, I can. This is a really crappy boat that basically everyone gets for free now. There we go. I mean, I better get in there. I'm going to miss out on the boss. As you can see, the boss fight is a very engaging experience. You really have to have a high level of understanding of the ocean content and ocean mechanics. Make sure you know how to evade all the attacks, like, you know, standing completely still and shooting your cannons at it. Now, my ship is currently underwater due to ocean bug. Don't worry about that. I just had to wait until my actual crosshairs. The crosshair tricked me. I have to wait till my crosshair is actually there before I shoot. It's a very high level of game design to have the water block your cannons from firing while also having your ship have a chance to just be underwater for no reason. If you can't tell, I do not feel this is a very well designed boss fight. I feel it is a quite disappointing experience. Sea content in general is in that area of just kind of being not great. Come on. I don't know if I've even hit it yet. Again, very engaging boss. I don't really care if I do hit it, but like, I want to actually show how you would fight the boss, but alright. I actually have to do something. So now we're just gonna sit down here. And the boss is gonna do an attack, and then we go back to the boat and we continue. Alright. I think I've actually hit the boss. Okay, there we go. I've hit the boss. We've done it. We've done it. We contributed to the boss. We did our part. And now, to demonstrate my high level of skill, I'm going to just go out here and not sink my ship that has been out here for a good 100 or so fights of this boss. I believe this is far enough. Apparently, I also just have a whole bunch of parts on my ship. I did not want to do that. F6. I see. There we go. Alright, we're taking part in the boss fight. We are doing our part. Unfortunately, the ocean is quite fickle. And it's not letting me repair my boat. Beautiful. I did not intend for this to happen at all, but this is just par for the course of ocean content in Black Desert. Okay, we will not be repairing the boat. We're just going to go and sit on the wheel. We'll go in to get our loot. Yeah, the ocean content is extremely buggy. If you play in high detail, it becomes even more buggy, which is amazing. how playing at higher graphical settings can cause the game to break even more. What's happening, if you don't already know, is my character is touching the water, which is then causing me to start swimming, which is then causing me to not be able to stand on the boat because I am swimming, which is pulling me underneath the boat. But then the game is figuring out that, hey, you can't pass through a barrier, and then it throws me back on the boat because technically I shouldn't have been swimming at all on the server side. Just a little communication error going on there. Beautiful. You can do a lot more fun stuff with the boat. But as I was saying on the other guy, the new accessory set goes to 10. It's slightly improved in terms of the fact that they don't downgrade anymore, but at the same time, it's exponentially more expensive to upgrade your accessories to where they're deemed good. You're going to have to dump a lot into that process. And we're going backwards. Like, it's straight up the company is just milking harder because they're not making enough money because of bad decisions they've made that has caused them to hemorrhage players, which is resulting in less spending, which is then causing them to cut corners on content, and we get modern C content. The C content was not this buggy before the last rework, which was years ago, by the way. Anyway, the accessory system, very greedy, very cron hungry. Crons you can only realistically obtain by melting costumes. You get a few in the game for free, but most of them are going to come from buying costumes and melting them, either buying them from other players. That you can buy cron stones directly from a blacksmith. They are far more expensive than if you buy costumes from players who bought them with cash and then you melt the costumes. So keep that in mind. You're expected to spend money on your accessories, basically on any gear you upgrade, but like just a lot of money. You're going to need to cron them regularly. Now, we went from the Pen Blackstar, which basically, did I not get in close enough? No, it's fine. I get my loot. Woo! All right, let's go back to another character. So the Black Star system and the Fallen God system. The Black Star system was probably the more greedy of the two. You still had to get the pen to actually have a good weapon. The Fallen God system was a massive improvement over past gear systems because at Duo, apparently I need to upgrade. Oh yeah, I slapped these and they went down. Oops. At Duo, you have all of the bonus stats that you're going to get other than 3DP per upgrade. And, 3DP is nice, it's good, you want it, but you don't need it. And because of that, effectively Duo was your soft cap. Like, Tet is your hard cap, basically, and then Pen was just a meme. It was somewhere you could just throw currency if you had it, but it was less than a 1% chance with a ridiculously high fail stack. You were probably never going to get full Pen Fallen God, is the way it was designed. It was just a long-term sink for currency. Not bad. Like, it's not a bad idea to have a sink like that and have it just be something that players are not expected to chase. It's just somewhere for your extra resources to go. I don't do that. I just hoard everything that ever is released in the game, and I have, I don't even know, 500 trillion, not 500 billion. 500 billion in just currency laying around in various things that I don't use. But if I was more active in the game, I could have been trying for Pen, Fallen God, and, if I got it, great. If I didn't, oh no, 3 DP loss, I'm just never going to recover. We went from that to Sovereign Weapons, which I stopped even grinding for because it's like 20-something weeks of... I think it's like 26 weeks. It might be less. It's 20 something weeks to actually make one sovereign weapon. I actually have the other two the free pen box, and I have the new one you can get that you have to upgrade your weapon to Hex, your season weapon to Vala. So I could technically have 3 pen black swords if I really wanted them. It's just like I don't need to bother with any of that. I have the box. If I ever want to open on a different character, I can. This is more than enough. But for what I do, if you want to be relevant, you got to go to Sov. You got to do it. And here's the big thing, Sov. We go from a system where a duo was like, you're pretty good. You got the last gear set of the game, allegedly. We'll see how long that lasts at this point. I expect them to replace the Fallen God set with a new 10 grade set, as well, the same as these and the same as the Sovereigns. That's what I expect. But for now, Sovereign is another 10 grade set. It was the first 10 grade set we got. That it goes all the way to Hex or whatever, Oct would be 8, I assume. I don't know what they go with for their number format. It goes to 10 is the important fact. So it becomes extremely expensive, and here's the big thing. It's non-tradable. These are all tradable. If I open the boxes, those two wouldn't be tradable. I don't think the new one is tradable. The old one is definitely not tradable. All of these are tradable. They're just not tradable because they're tagged. Obviously, you can't tag gear and then trade it. No duping gear. So it's not only a much larger investment to get that grade 10 Sovereign. You then can't even trade it or sell it or buy it, more importantly. Like, if you didn't want to go through those 10 grades of enhancement, which basically require you to buy costumes and melt them to get Cron Stones, to use the Cron Stones to protect your gear so that you can upgrade it. If you don't want to do that, you don't get Sovereign. I have the resources to try to, like, upgrade Sovereign. I could also try to take my Zard set up more if I wanted to. But just overall, I'm just so demotivated because of the way the game has gone. Like, these are the flames you get to make your Sovereign. I stopped at 36. That's like weeks and weeks of doing the bosses that you can do once per week. They're not like you log in, you do your weekly bosses, and then you log out. You have to log in when they spawn in the field. And you do them once. Now you just have to log in when the other bosses spawn in the field. They're all on a different schedule. It is bad. Bad game design. Like, you're on their schedule on when you can do the bosses. You also are only allowed to do the bosses once per week. And because of that, the later in the week you go to those bosses, the less people are showing up to fight the bosses, which means the fight's going to go longer and maybe despawn. Which I don't know if despawn actually has any impact. I think you still get your same loot, which then is like, why even fight the boss? Everyone go hit it once and then just chill. Wait for it to despawn. Like, there's no reason to do the bosses unless you're really gonna go all in and try to get the flame and make a Sov. And then once you get the Sov, it's untradeable. You have to go through the hell of 10 grades of enhancement with downgrades on failure unless you use Cron Stones. Greed is all I can use to describe that. After we got the Sovereigns, we got these. We got the Zards. Now, these are much easier to make. That's the one redeeming fact. Like, these, it's like $1 billion to make one. It's probably a little more expensive. I have ridiculous amounts of every material you could ever need just sitting on my characters and in my storages. Like, I just hoard everything. Like, I have every storage in the game is close to overflowing or overflowing if I have, if I don't use workers. If I use workers, I have to keep the storage slightly not overflowing. Like, I have endless materials. So for me, these were about 400 million. to make each. And then to upgrade them is probably like another $1 or $2 billion to buy the materials to upgrade them. They've gotten more expensive since then. Just be aware of that. But it was dirt cheap to make these. I could make them. I have actually the rings are already made and they're tri as well. I like these, but I do need to make the belt if I care to. Like, it's an improvement over this easily. But each of those are also 10 grade. I'm willing to bet Fallen God was supposed to be the last successor, the last armor set, that we were going to get. I'm willing to bet we're about to get a Fallen God Sovereign upgrade path where we get Sovereign God, or I always memed about Awakened God or Risen God. We're going to get a new set that's a 10 set for armor. Mark my words, it's going to happen. It's a bad idea, but they're going to do it anyway because greed. When that happens, if the game is still alive at that point, I have a feeling that might be the nail in the coffin. It's hard to even say the game is alive right now. I know you can see the chat going on. There are people that are in-game, and they're doing things. But the thing you have to remember is most of the players that are online, I can show you them right now. Like, I can literally just point you at most of the players. I'm going to show the rotations first, just so you can see the grinding, which is what I was going to do before I did that boss. So, grinding in Black Desert is, like, it depends on your class, but this is it. It's very MapleStory. It's everything dies in one hit. If it doesn't die in one hit, you ignore it and go to another pack of enemies that will die in one hit. And the only reason things don't die in one hit is because animation hitboxes are not super great sometimes. Depends on the class you're playing. Some classes are just really streamlined. They're great. All their skills hit in like a 50-meter radius, and they're amazing. Then you got classes like Dosa, which he's a range class. Like, it's cool and all that you have all that range. Those attacks all center on the target that your crosshair is locked onto. It's another important factor. A lot of people say, like, oh, well, Black Desert offers you non-target lock combat. Here's the thing. Target lock, not target lock. Target lock, not target lock. Skill. Automatically targets. Automatically pulls over to the target that you last target locked. You don't have any real control over where your skills are going to go. Some skills are like straight rows and stuff, and they will automatically shoot wherever they're going to shoot. Any targeted skill will automatically target lock whether you're locked onto a target or not. They will guarantee that they hit the target unless there's just no target the game can calculate that you have recently aimed at for whatever reason. Either it's not in field of view or you're on like a ledge. Like, one of the key things that irks me is all of my AoEs are large enough to hit that orange dude up there. However, because this vertical distance is considered part of the range of all attacks, that basically soaks up my entire animation's range, even though the animation is still touching him. All of this is basically, this vertical distance is basically actual range of your skills. And that's just something when you have... BDO uses a system with a artificial 3D environment. Everything is technically a 2D slope. Just everything is 2D. If you see this tree, as far as my skills are going, if the skill would go to here, and this tree is in the way, it will instead travel up this surface as if this surface was flat. So that's what I mean by artificial 3D. Now, the one thing they do that actually somewhat mitigates that is jumping in the game is a true separation from the terrain. It gives you vertical range that is, it gives you a distance that is treated as vertical ignorance. I don't know how to better describe that. Basically, your character will ignore the relative height they've gained in terms of range from any type of vertical increase. Now, that also produces a lot of funky interactions because it's not true jumping. Your character is still locked onto the terrain underneath you. So sometimes you'll hit walls and you'll not go. You're clearly over the wall, but you won't go over it because the game is calculating the distance isn't quite even with your total vertical increase based on your jump. That's just a core problem or design choice, depending on how you want to look at it, of the game. Now, I've just been kind of casually doing a lap here. This is not one of the. This is actually a bad grind spot, but it showcases what I wanted to show very well. The optimal cycle here is these 3 packs, or these 4 packs, I guess, depending on how you define pack. That major one there, that major one there, and then like the double one right there, and you kind of just fill in the gaps because you have the time on respawn. Now, the amount of effort you have to put in to effectively do all 3 of those is not worth the return at all. Now, that's partly because of what the enemies drop here. The ones that you really want to be killing are mostly in these 3 packs. These 3 smaller packs, these mini packs, which, because of that, you can kind of just, if you want to grind the game at a moderate efficiency, you're basically going to do these 3 packs, and by the time I get back over there, these guys will be back up. Boom. There they are. Technically, you can clear out those in between. They're scattered. They're really just suboptimally placed. Again, this is a... Apparently I've got no room in my inventory. I must continue hoarding. I don't have anything to do with these things, but I will hoard them. So that's like your average player is going to be doing a rotation like that. And it's fine, you know, it's gameplay. You'd actually improve that by using these. Not all classes have that kind of range control, but I do, so if I really wanted to like efficiently grind, that would be one of the changes that I could make to this. I need to wait for them to get closer because my AoEs are too small to guarantee that I hit them all. I wanted to do this. These, and then just reset the cycle. Maybe kill these guys in between that. So there you go. That's your average player. Some classes can easily do the full cycle here. Most classes are probably only going to do a partial cycle. And it takes a moderate amount of focus to like do that optimally. Like I'm actually putting a little bit of effort into my rotation. A little confused with some of, they've done a lot of optimization this class, which it's casting multiple of my skills when I don't expect them to be cast. Like when I want to separate them and put them into different packs, it's throwing out both of my metal skills at once. Now, if you really want to like put in massive effort, it's not worth it, but if you want to like get your optimal rotation, you're going to go through these packs instead. That is, I'm not a big fan of the helping the player they've done with some of your skill rotations. You used to only be able to do that dash. This thing, you could only do this after an attack, and now you can do it after a dash. And I'm typically dashing while I want to get to another pack. So like I dash, and then I want to double jump, and instead I do this. In that situation, it gets me where I want to be, but in the other situation, So yeah, it just automatically chains all three of those skills now before you have to actually press back and attack to get the other one. So if you want to split them between three different packs, you have to be a little more controlled in your inputs than you need to before. And they're trying to help you, they kind of hurt you a little bit. So now, rather than doing a dash first, I have to do that before I do a dash, or else I'm going to get pulled into the other attack, which you for some reason can't jump out of. I can't like do this and then jump out of this one and go into the fire dive. I don't know why they've opted for that limitation, but with how they've made it work, it feels like that should be required. Like it's a mandatory interaction that needs to be there. Now, functionally, this character is one of the better classes in the game in terms of how everything flows together. They've just changed it on me. Like I'm playing it poorly because I haven't played enough with the recent improvements to fully understand how everything works, how everything synergizes correctly. Now, in terms of bossing, this is basically the only real bossing you're going to get. I mean, I know are you kidding me? Do you mind? This is probably the most advanced boss fight. Like, it's gonna feel like probably a 2004, 2008 offline boss fight. And it's a single fight, or single player fight, so like it's not a party fight. You're doing it alone. So it very much just is a solo boss fight, a single player campaign boss fight. Now, your gear doesn't count in anything under 8 for these, so keep that in mind. But this is your in-game boss fighting. Like, the field bosses are not field bosses. Just be aware of that. Did I not break this? Alright. Let me just restart it. I thought I broke that altar. I could do 7. I wouldn't do 7 on Dosa while I don't know his kit. I'm doing 6 just to kind of showcase the mechanics. I want something easy. I want to have to actually try. For classes that I know, 7 is a little difficult. And I made this class on release, leveled it up, kind of liked it, tagged my gear, and then have not used it since. I still like it more than Deadeye. Is it done? I don't know why it keeps marking it after it's dead. Like I get the announcements. But yeah, I honestly, this bossing feels fine, especially considering it's an MMO environment, even though it's a single player only boss fight. I should probably give it less credit considering that it is basically a single player boss. Given a lot of leeway to be like, oh, it's an online game, but it's an offline boss fight. But it has a good set of mechanics. Its attacks are predictable but not easy because you're focusing between dealing with mechanics as well as dealing with its attacks. So like it'll give you a bit of a challenge, and the challenge mostly feels fair. The lightning is a little I wouldn't say the lightning adds to the fight. It just adds unnecessary complexity just to pretend that there's more to it than there actually is. The reality of the fight is it's a much simpler fight than it wants to pretend to be. The lightning does not specifically track your character, but it does if you stand still for a long period of time. And by long period, I mean like a second or two, it will strike down on top of you. But the main mechanics are in this phase. So, I mean, if you like what you're seeing with these boss fights, just know that this is 1% of the game's content. Like, I'm not saying, oh, you're never going to be able to do this. Once per week, 5 times, you'll be able to fight these types of bosses that are actually well designed. The rest of the time, you're dealing with field bosses. Can I have my tornado, please? Thank you. Is that really necessary? This is actually probably failed. Because that placement is really bad for my class. Alright, that worked. I have AoEs in like all of my attacks that do any damage, so it's kind of awful if it puts the main orb next to one of the ones I have to break. You have to break all of them, but you have to break all the ones that are connected to the ground first. It's kind of just suboptimal positioning. It's one of those things that, like, if I was designing something like this, if anyone on my team was designing something like this, we would 100% put a maximum and minimum limit on those. So they couldn't spawn underneath each other like that. Because it's unfair to the player. Like, what am I supposed to do? I'm an AoE class. Imagine if you're like a witch and all of your attacks are AoE. And the game's telling you not to destroy the main orb, and the main orb is spawning underneath the ones you're supposed to destroy. Like, I can't pick my target any more so than you've given me the tools to do that. But, I mean, it's a minor complaint. I stand by these bosses are still fairly well designed for the standard set by the rest of the game. It shows that the company knows how to make a good boss fight, even if they choose not to. It makes you question why they are choosing not to if they understand, like, this is actually a good, engaging boss fight. There's a good mixture of, like, active and reactive content. Like, I am actually involved in this fight. It's not the fight just happening to my character while I watch. I need to stand in that. This is another part I'm a little iffy with. You have to take a certain amount of damage from that tornado to actually activate the phase that makes you immune to the damage here, but the lightning can still damage you, so be aware of that. But to compare this to field bosses, these are carefully gear balanced. You have a very minimal impact of your gears, so you can come in here with buffs and it'll speed up the fight a lot. If you're going for the high score, then, like, yeah, I come in with full buffs. If not, then it's kind of fine with whatever you bring. I came in with no buffs. Doesn't really matter. I guess I have life skill EXP. That really does make a big impact on the bosses. Just be aware of that. You'll want to be running your life skill EXP for bosses. But yeah, I didn't come in with any of the buffs because I was just kind of going to showcase the mechanics. Because mechanically, these bosses are actually enjoyable. If you could do these kind of fights throughout the week, like if this was your in-game goal, it'd be pretty good. But it is not. 5 times per week, limited to once per difficulty level of the boss. If you actually care about your loot, technically you can run the boss as many times as you want, but you only get rewarded 5 times. It's a bug with that skill. They said they fixed it, but apparently not. I swear I've taken the tornadoes to that a few. There we go. I pulled them over there the first time, and then they just didn't trigger. So for this one, just a very basic explanation of the mechanics that are going on here. The water behind the ones that you can see this little bit of water splashing behind them. It's not quite centered on where they're at. That's I feel like the timer counted sooner. I might have collateral damaged one of the other ones and broke it. It seems like the fight's getting really buggy. I'm getting multiple tornadoes from each thing. They're not activating the phase correctly. I haven't usually experienced this level of issue with this fight. There's one more. It's probably this one. It could be the one that's next to this one. The boss fights here are heavily scaled to your gear. And by scaled to your gear, I mean like your gear is almost non-impactful for the lower level ones. The higher level ones, the 8 and higher, you actually do use your gear, and it'll probably change the whole dynamic of what these bosses are. For now, I'm basically equalized with every other player, and I get I think it's 10% of my gear benefits. So it makes them much more balanced, basically. Everyone's fighting mostly the same boss unless you come in here with a lot of buffs, and then in that case you're going to get a significantly faster clear. I kind of wanted to let it leave so I could show the last phase just to fully cover the boss fight. Oh, this is really bad. This is another situation where my AoEs are kind of working against me. I'm just going to leave that one and come back to it. This is my only attack that doesn't really have a big AoE. Okay, so there you go. You'll see that the orbs that are flying around this some of them will disappear. You have to break the ones that did not, or that did disappear, and not break the ones that didn't. So, it's a good boss fight. And all of these boss fights, or most of them, are well designed like this one. It's more about knowledge than just stats. A little bit skill, mostly knowledge, and then having some gear and buffs will definitely speed up your time a lot. I should really get my flute. I have the option to go and get a free one at any point. I just don't want to get it on a character that I'll probably never play again. Like eventually I'm gonna retire this character whenever they release something new that's interesting. But I mean, it depends on how long I continue playing. I would say this is not a game worth getting into. The bar for entry is so insane. I have 20,000 hours into it, give or take. I gotta be getting close to the 20,000 hour mark if I don't already have it. Now, my next mark is the 20,000 hour mark. You don't actually have any in game reference for how long you've been in other than those. I passed the 10,001 years ago, which should tell you something about the quality of the game, that despite having a lot of AFK activity, in years I have not passed the 20,000 hour mark. And like I keep up with the game. I don't play it like a lot of people play it. Like some of the really diehard players, they log 2,000-3,000 hours at least every couple months. I maybe get 1,000 hours a year, honestly. If they have some really good content, and by that I mean a class that I really enjoy playing, I might get closer to 2,000 hours a year. Like I don't know what people do that they are engaged enough, other than what I'm about to show, which is the game is really suffering. I've said this multiple times, but the game is really suffering on player retention. They've lost most of their players. Let's be clear on that. Most of the players are gone. Now, the few loyalists they have, the people that are always going to be playing the game, even they are starting to stop logging in regularly. They still log back in. You know, I would consider myself one of the loyalists. I've been playing the game for a long period of time. I keep coming back to the game. It's always with this hope that I'm going to come back, and then, like, after a 5-6 month break, I'm going to show back up, and they're just going to be, all the content will be fixed, because there's a lot of potential. Like, that's one of the big things, is the game has a lot of things they could do right if they actually put the time and money into doing it. But here's the player base. You know, we have the typical town sitters. It's not that many people. But then if we go right over here, just a little bit over, just a smidge more. Hey, look, I found the entire community. So this is a big factor with a lot of people say, oh, the game isn't dying. The game is doing great. We got all these players that are online. This isn't online. This is minimized to Trey, and they log in, or they don't log in, but they open up the client, put it into actual view maybe once every other day to go and sell their fish. Like, yes, it's content that can exist. It's not that the content itself is bad. Like, there's nothing wrong with having idle content built into games. It's actually a really good idea in the modern era, because you have a lot of gamers who work a job and they want to, like, be able to somewhat keep up with players in the game, and they also have to work a job. And rather than just saying, well, if you work a job, just buy your chrome stones and smith some gear, they have idle content that allows people to just generate a passive income in the game. There's additional idle content that you can use, worker systems, lots of idle content in the game. Now, the thing is, idle content does one thing that's bad, and it masks actual player health and retention. You're going to see a lot of players who seem like they're online, but in reality, they're just leaving their computer on, or if their computer's already left on, they're just leaving the client active on a computer that's already left on. Some people actually, I know some players personally who run a server, and they run a server machine just to run their character without having to run their private PC, because it's dirt cheap. You can run like a really low-end server for like $15-20, And then you can run Black Desert on that server and just leave it running forever. And you just log into that server from your main PC once a week to reset everything, sell anything you need to sell. It's, I mean, if you're willing to pay a subscription to play the game, the same price as a modern subscription to be able to run it without any hardware damage makes sense. But the thing is, those people are absolutely not active. Like, as far as their interaction with the game is, they're not even logged in. Yes, the server has them logged in and it's doing the idle tasks, and they log into the server, handle some of the manual tasks they need to do, but like realistically, they're not playing the game. So we have this illusion of, I think they say 30 to 40,000 daily players. This isn't a daily player. Like, I can't drive that point home hard enough. This is not a healthy game. There's some older games, like some of the ones that my team's been working on. We've all been working on the Tree of Savior game, which eventually I'm going to be able to upload the video on that. This is kind of just like a middle ground while I'm waiting for them to give me the video. Give me the money. I need the money. I can't host the content until you give me the content. Like, they're taking their sweet time. I'm a little annoyed with how long it's taking them to get me that content so they can actually make the video. I've been pitching it for at least a month or 2 months now. But I get it. They gotta iron out the stuff. They gotta make it look pretty. Make sure they cover all the important information. I'm ready to make the video whenever they are. But one of the other games we're working on alongside that one is, I don't know if they've been working on it per se, but I know that within the circle of people that are working on these projects, they're working on Granada Spada. And Granada Spada is probably the first MMO idle game. Like, it's straight up, you logged in, you set your characters in a map, you press spacebar, and you left. And your characters automatically defended their position until they died. And you got loot from your pets, and like, it was a full-on idle game turned into a MMO. And then it had actual raids and stuff that you would do more actively, because, you know, you could still press spacebar on bosses and let them die, but, you know, you sometimes needed to dodge skills and stuff. So there was like an active element and a passive element. And that worked. Like, it did really well. The company kind of screwed the game. They have a history of doing this. It got really greedy. They started selling all the future content instead of actually having like a balance of, you can buy some of this or you can grind a game and get it this way. It was, you just buy everything. And believe it or not, most gamers won't stick around in a system where everything is just drip feeded to them for cash. They want a balance. But like, the concept is not a new concept, and it's not a bad concept. Idle activity to help the average player keep up with the no-lifer is good. If it creates an illusion of a population, and then people are getting into the game thinking, oh, well, it's okay, there's 50,000 other people that are logging in and playing, so it's not like I'm getting into this MMO to play it all alone. And that's one of that's honestly the point that I would want to make with this video, the most important point to make. You're playing Black Desert to play an offline game. And by that I mean you're playing alone. There is some multiplayer content. It is mostly abandoned. If you're playing for the PvP, okay. Like, sure, if you're gonna join a clan and you're gonna do clan wars and all that stuff, like, you're actually going to get a multiplayer experience that is about on par with other. I mean, even the people who really PvP, I've never been super into the PvP on Black Desert. I find it to be kind of clunky myself. It's not as responsive as I would like. The actual class interactions, Blade and Soul was like peak PvP for me. If a player did a stun, I could do a block or counter and hit that stun back on them. In this game, you don't have anything like that. What you have is you've got percentage resistances to your status elements, and I actually have 100% to everything due to my crystals and whatnot, but only in PvE. But it caps at like 90 anyway, so even if you have 100. Regardless, in PvP, you just have a chance that your CC will be ignored by the other player, and you only have a chance to apply your CC when you attack. So you've got chances of landing CC, and then the way PvP works is once someone lands CC on you, unless your team covers your ass, you're dead. Well, you'll get knocked on the ground, you're on your back, you lose half of your armor, you're dead. Not having any type of high level of interactivity in that, having it just be a dice roll, and then if you get a bad roll, you're dead, and if you don't get a bad roll, then you're alive. Doesn't do it for me. Some people don't mind that. I mean, it's kind of like a mix of like, I would say this type of system works in an old game where you had very limited control. A top-down, mouse-click control, Ragnarok Online. Like, it was a lot of RNG. Did they land a stun on you? Did you evade their attacks? But it was because you didn't have control. And the one thing you can say about Black Desert, despite a lot of its shortcomings in the way that the engine actually works, is you have a lot of control. Like, you can be doing attacks, you can swap, you can jump out of the attacks with this character, and some other characters can't quite do that, but like, you have a good degree of control even within the limitations of the engine. Like, you're not limited in your level of interaction. So you don't need all these RNG elements to try to supplement a level of user control where there isn't any. If you're PvPing with someone, you don't need to be like, oh, well, you landed your attack, but we feel like because they were not as mobile as you, or because your range was higher than theirs, they shouldn't have been stunned by that attack, because they have blocks, they have iframes, they have dashes, they have so many ways that they can react to your gameplay that you don't need that randomness to equalize anything. Again, going to Blade and Soul. In Blade and Soul, you see them winding up their stun, and you can dodge out of the way, you can parry it, or you can block it. And all of those things will keep the stun from applying. And given you have that level of control, there is no, or again, early on in Blade and Soul, I don't know how the game developed after the early days, because it kind of went off a cliff, from, in my opinion. Like, they stopped doing they announced the big remaster and they never delivered it, and I was waiting for that remaster forever. So I'm still waiting for the remaster. I haven't played post-launch. Launch was really good in my opinion. After that, I can't speak to it. But early on, you had all that reactive gameplay, and it made the PvP really good. Like, that was the whole appeal of Blade and Soul, from what I could tell, is that your PvP, both open world and arena, was just really fine-tuned. All about player reaction, minimized RNG, as PvP should be. I don't think Black Desert delivers that, personally. Now, if you're totally fine with the limitations I've laid out, go for it. PvP is the one thing, and keep in mind, they've been kind of moving away from PvP for a while now. They kind of moved back into it because people were really upset that they were moving away from it. They put the new horse behind PvP. Like, they're putting some incentives for people to PvP into the game, while also putting a lot of incentives for people to not PvP in the game. So, just be aware that the developers seem to not fully understand their PvP, as well as not only really favoring PvP after the players point out their interest in PvP rather than understanding what the players want. And that's an issue with a lot of MMOs in general. Just, be aware. PvP is probably taking second position in terms of their development team, if not third position. Life skills are I would say life skills are pretty guaranteed to be third position. Life skill updates are very far in between. and usually not that impactful. Like, the one thing that they did recently is they buffed the hell out of fishing, and that's why you're seeing everyone fishing now, because you can make really good money without having to do anything. But yeah, if you're actually looking for an MMO to play and you're not super into like the clan war scene, and even if you are, if you haven't played or if you have played Guild Wars 2, games like that tend to do PvP better. Maybe the new Blade and Soul Neo is going to be more up your alley in PvP. Now, just speculating there. Maybe this is the PvP game for you. Great. It's PvP is its one redeeming factor where you're going to be able to have fun. You're going to be interacting with other players. It's going to be worth playing an MMO if that's what you're after. If you want the mobbing, just play an offline game. Like, I'm trying to be gentle about this, but the mobbing in Black Desert is very outdated. It is not well balanced. You have to put in a lot of effort for a very little return, or you just put in almost no effort and then you get a decent return, and then it's like, why are you standing in a field in the same spot and pressing an AoE once every like 30 seconds at all? You're just doing it to get your numbers up, and then the thing is, your numbers are going to be higher, and then the new zones are just going to be more of the same. You're not going to get to a new zone and then suddenly have mobs that are really reactive and like you actually have to fight back. It's just you get your numbers up high enough to where you one shot at a higher level zone, or you one cycle at a higher level zone. Some people get really upset if it's like, oh, we don't one shot at the highest content right now. Oh, clearly you don't know what you're talking about. Okay, one cycle. Look, I'm gonna one shot a pack of mobs. Alright, here we go. This is definitely not one-shotting. Okay, we got a hypothetical pack of mobs. I need my actual stance. 1, 2, 3, roll. 1, 2, 3, pack is dead. If it's not dead, roll. AoE. Like, at no point have I been in any risk in that cycle, and it would be much faster if I was actually hitting targets because I'd get my speed boosts. So, I consider that a one-shot. If you like actually hit a mob, do some damage to it, have to block and roll back and like strategize, like that's an interactive fight. Like, I can go to the higher content, but the video's already so long. I could show what I mean, but I think you kind of get it. Like, the content is never stressing you. Unless you're just going there with too low of gear. And it's not that your gear is so low that you're like, oh, well, I'm doing low damage and they're just taking too many hits and I take too much damage when I get hit. Because the way the gear system works in Black Desert, you're either one-shotting or you're having 90% of your attacks just miss. And it's not because of accuracy, it's because the game uses a AP system where if you don't have the right minimum AP, so if you haven't reached the minimum AP for the zone, you just immediately face like a 70% reduced damage output and 70% reduced accuracy. 1 point of AP. So you compare that with something like Path of Exile, where if you're fighting mobs that are stronger than you, and you're doing 2,000 damage and they have a lot of HP, you're going to do 2,000 damage and the mobs are going to take whatever reductions they have, and then that's going to go in their HP pool. Here, the difference of being at the minimum AP requirement and being at 1 point below that is like if you went to PoE, you went to a set of mobs, they had 10,000 HP, you normally do 2,000 damage, but because you don't have some arbitrary stat somewhere, again, AP in this regard, instead of doing 2,000 damage, you do 600 damage. And it's awful. It's terrible. At that point, there's no reason for you to even try to fight those mobs until you have the minimum stat requirement to do your normal damage. So as long as you're in that minimum stat range, you're going to be either one-shotting or one-cycling mobs. So basically, you kind of make a little bit of a pack, turn around, use however many skills you need to use without any risk to yourself to kill them, and then repeat. if you're playing an offline game, at the bare minimum, you're going to be utilizing an interactive form of grinding. And there'll be much less grinding for that. So, like, you'll be fighting mobs when you want to fight mobs, not fighting mobs so that you can get ready to fight more mobs. The endless cycle of I'll get stronger so that I can fight more mobs, so that I can get stronger, so that I can fight more mobs, so that I can get stronger, so that I can fight more mobs. You'll have more goal-oriented gameplay. In a traditional offline game, you'll get stronger so you can fight the next boss. That's the only time you're going to grind, is like if the boss is just too hard. And usually, in a traditional offline game, you can technically just fight nothing but the bosses. You boss, never fight any mobs, run past them all. It's all about skill. Now, in Black Desert, if you go to the higher level mobs, as I just said, you're going to be doing no damage at all. 0. Not a reduced amount of damage, you will just be doing no damage. Between a 70% reduced damage, and that's only the 1 point difference. Let's be clear. You go down 5 points below the not recommended, but below the minimum AP requirement, and you're up to 90%. 90% chance to do, or 10% chance to do 10% of your normal damage. It's irrelevant. You can kill the mobs. Like, I want to be clear. You can kill the strongest mobs in the game with no gear on. No offensive gear. Like, you could put on your old Hwando. You can put that on, and you can kill the strongest mobs in the game. It's just, you're going to be spending an hour on a single pack of mobs because your damage is fixed. It's one of the things people don't understand about Black Desert, and like I've looked at some of the code to try to understand how they calculate your damage. Your damage is fixed in Black Desert. You have a fixed amount of damage that then gets multiplied by your attack multipliers on your skills. So all you're dealing with your gear, with your AP, is the percentage ratio of that damage, and then sometimes we don't even see it that much anymore. With older gear, you did have extra damage to all species plus 8. And the reason that is so low is because your base damage is only like 100. So plus 8 is actually a lot. Like, that's a big increase. I mean, it's 8%, but like, you get my point. Other than extra damage, AP is nothing but a multiplier. And it never goes above. Here's the key thing. It never goes above 100%. When you hit the maximum AP requirement, or an AP scaling ratio, it's not requirement at that point, but when you hit the maximum AP of a map, or a mod spawn, mob in particular, actually, because they all have their own unique ones. But when you hit that, you're doing your full damage. The only way you're going to increase it further is with all special type attack damage percent and flat damage, extra damage towards species. Because that extra damage is not just 8, that's 8, and then that gets multiplied by your skill multiplier. Like, if you play in the labs, you really see this. Now, one thing is, there is a little bit of a obfuscation of this. To be clear, when you're playing in the labs, if you check your damage numbers, because you're allowed to see them, you're going to notice that your damage does go up as you level. As you level, you gain some more flat damage to, like, make you feel stronger from leveling. It's totally relevant to your gear. But now, that's not a perfect explanation of the system, but it should be a pretty good bare bones explanation of how everything works. Like, you're gonna, from that explanation, you're going to have a decent understanding of how the game functions. If you want to know every detail, I'm sure there's someone out there who has just got their hands on the private server data and went through and dumped every single script related to damage calculations, and they can tell you exactly what affects your damage, what doesn't affect your damage. I'm just telling you, like, based on a good amount of experience and testing the global labs before they removed the general damage numbers, they made it so you can only see them on the scarecrows. I don't know if they reversed that, but once they did it, I had little reason to test on global labs anymore, because one of the things I wanted to find out more about was their damage calculations. And then afterwards, I got the private data and checked through that server data just to see what I could get from that in terms of how things were calculated, how AP requirements worked. Just get a better understanding of the core mechanics of the game just for the sake of knowing. You know, I play the game, now I know a little bit more about when I can go to which zones, which I guess I could technically make videos on that, but I'm considering this video is ultimately saying if you're not already playing the game, if you're not already invested, probably look for a different game. I don't think I'm going to revisit Black Desert. Like, I'll probably continue playing it, and that's just, I'm like 100% honest, it's sunken cost fallacy. I'm in this far. If the game ever gets good, I want to be able to experience it. I mean, one other subject that I should cover is life skills. I kind of covered it with the fishing thing. Life skills are like the afterthought of the game. Early on in Black Desert's life, they were huge. You actually crafted gear through life skills. The gear you crafted was like best in slot, the gear people used in PvP and PvE. For the most part, like boss gear existed, but it was so rare that by having a higher upgrade tier of Grenil, you would, I think it's Grenil, whatever the gear is, by having a higher upgrade tier of it, you would actually greatly benefit over trying to get boss gear, which was just not readily accessible. Apparently I got no money. All of my liquidity is sitting here on this chair because I do AFK fish. I know I was pointing out the flaws with that as gameplay design, but I'm going to 100% use it. I'm going to get my free money. I haven't been AFK fishing for weeks, that's why I have no money. I bought out some of the rest of the items that are going to flip, and I'm going to make some money on that, but for now, everything is back in items. But life skills basically just fell out of favor after Media. Like, it's been... So, when they unlocked this little section of map, not even this section, just this section, this was the last time life skills were really useful. As soon as they unlocked this, life skills got replaced with, I can show this right here. These. They got replaced with these, the investment banks. Do you mind? The investment banks were, at the time, generating like 100 million per day if you had all of them. And the thing you have to keep in mind about the investment banks is you had to have a rank 1 house. You still do have to have a rank 1 house to use them. Now, something that I find funny is I went to that town because that's one of the first ones that people were really competing with on housing because there's only so many houses. A rank 1 house is basically just pay to win. It's just straight up pay to win. You can't stack housing points from free items. You can only stack housing points from paid items. So people literally dropped 15 to 20,000 US dollars on those houses to fill every square inch of that house with stackable, minimum size, high point value items to guarantee that they had rank 1 and no one could take it from them. And then later, people found out that you could actually bug the game and put items outside the house, and then people spent even more money to fight for houses with that. It's a whole history lesson on the housing system. Point being, to access those income sources, people were spending ridiculous amounts of money because basically that rendered all life skilling irrelevant. You would be life skilling to get like 20 to 30,000 currency per day, and then those were giving out 100 million across all of them combined. And at that point, those became kind of, if you didn't have one of those houses, you were falling behind very quickly in terms of gear progression. They started upping the drop rates for modding, and the cycle kind of continued for a long period of time. They would add a new trade node, or and by trade node I mean another rank 1 node, or they would add more investment banks. and then they would buff up grinding. And life skill was just sitting there. Just if I was gonna edit the video, I'd put the meme of the skeleton sitting in the chair at the bottom of the pool. I think it's skeleton. I've not used that meme very much. I just know of it. I've witnessed it, and that would be life skills. While either grinding or investment banking has been the struggling one, and then the other one is being lifted up with whatever patch they do. Trash loot getting its value changed from 10% of its current or its old value to 100% of its current value. So just a 10 times multiplier. It's quite ridiculous. Now, they would occasionally come back and give life skill like a little brush up, and that's the thing I wanted to cover. If you're interested in life skill in this game, we had a huge hype. Let me rephrase that. They were trying to build the hype about the Prion accessories. I don't know if that's the specific pronunciation or what people are going with. I'm just going to call them the Prion accessories. They're the new 10 grade life skill accessory, similar to the Zarns. So they were trying to build this up as like, we're going to fix life skills. They're going to be good again. And there are some life skills people will always, if you say life skilling is trash, there's always that one guy who's like, you can snipe for really good returns. And it's like, okay, cool. And everything else? Well, don't do anything else. Just snipe. Well, what if I don't want to snipe? What if I want to have a garden? Okay? If you want to take part in any of the life skills that are not currently just elevated above everything else, fishing, for example, right now, no activity, good returns. And that's because they recently came in and literally doubled the value of most fish and then added fish that were worth more than 100 times the value of past fish. A 100 multiplier to the fishing income in some regards. On average, we'll say it was probably like a 300 to 500% increase in value depending on your luck and your mastery. Fishing mastery is one of the ones that matters. So even with that big of a change, it's still you're making less money than if you grind. So life skills are still below active grinding. That's what you're going to have to do if you want to catch up. So just keep that in mind. But in general, every other life skill is basically abandoned. Gathering, garbage. There was a very short time when you could make really good money. I actually shared this with everyone, and then it kind of ruined the market because there's so many people who want to life skill, and there's so little value to be obtained from life skilling. As soon as I told people about mithril mining, the supply of mithril very quickly exceeded the demand. Let me show that real quick. Oh, it's Y, whichever one. So yeah, there was a time when these were. It's been more than 3 months. There was a time when these were over 1 million each, and there was a order demand for them in the tens of thousands. Now you could make like 6 or 7 billion per hour, and that was a good ways back when that was the best money you could make in the game. And now, obviously, the prices have crashed down pretty harshly because you could actually mine a very large amount of mithril. You were getting upwards of 200, 300 mithril per minigame. And it was a lot of money. I think you could actually get 500 mithril per minigame. Now that I'm thinking about it, but yeah. Outside of like really rare exemptions, that was not the standard for life skills, and it is definitely not the standard now. Now, the Prion accessory release, to get back to that, I know I kind of went off on like a kind of setting the stage. they were talking about raising the mastery cap, and like life skills are going to be good, guys. Trust us. Now, the final release of that change, most life skills by going from 2,000 mastery cap to 3,000, which is not free. It's easily done because we have items like these that just give you 500 mastery for 3 hours. But like it's doable. But for doing it, you gain, I believe it was 0.7% more average returns. Now, they might have buffed it because that was like awful. But the initial information they put out, 0.7% more profit per hour for getting 3,000 mastery, which required you to invest quite a bit of money to reach. It's a joke. And now you're looking at these new 10 grade accessories that require a very large amount of money to upgrade to their 10th grade, and the only reason they exist is to help you hit Mastery 10, and for most life skills, that mastery is just totally irrelevant. So take that as a measurement of where life skilling is in the game. If you're not going to AFK fish, you're not going to life skill. I mean, technically, sniping probably still is good money. I've sniped once, didn't like the minigame, didn't like the way it works. It felt like an inferior version of hunting, and I don't really enjoy hunting. Hunting has one big appeal, and this is probably a bad idea, but I'm just going to go ahead and say it because I don't play the game seriously anymore. I haven't in a long time. Hunting, if you go, this is just my free little tip if you want to get in the game. I recommend you don't, but if you do, if you hunt across here and you hunt all the channels, there are some snakes, ancient stone boas or something like that. It's been a long time since I've gone there. You can kill them in every channel. There's usually 1 or 2 of them per channel, unless someone else is farming them. This is why it's a bad idea to tell people about this. Realistically, enough people have covered guides on them in the past, but I'm just telling you right now, if you want the exact guide, those people's guides exist. I'm not going to try to explain the exact spots. I'm not going to show them because it would take too long. The video's already an hour and a half. Each of them drops, in current market value, like 20 to 50 million currency. And they take, wait, let me correct that. Every time you kill one of these snakes, you actually kill 3 of them because they spawn 2 clones when you get them under 50% HP. And those clones drop loot. And each of them drops 50 million currency, and it takes you a couple seconds to kill them. So if you jump all the channels, you're going to get 1 billion, 2 billion currency. I don't know how many channels we have. They've been reducing our total channel count as well. Another example of the game not being in a particularly healthy state. But, 1 to 2 billion currency in under an hour. This is really good returns. I should be doing it. The reason, it's not going to last forever. The reason that is happening is because the next free pen Black Star they gave you is basically gated behind having a ridiculous amount of sharps, and you get sharps over there. There's another set, I believe, in this area. You'd have to, again, there's videos that cover all the rare mobs, but the snakes are the best because they duplicate. Not all the other ones have that mechanic. So getting 3 kills for every one is ridiculous. So there are things like that. There are niches, very small niches you can find where you're going to make really good money life skilling. And that money is going to dry up quick as more players either are doing the content, because there's only so many channels and they have like an hour, I think it's a 4-hour respawn actually. I think it's a 4-hour respawn on these, so you can do all the channels once, come back like at the end of your day before you're getting ready to go sleep and do them again, and that's like the best income you're going to get, which will be 4 billion per day for 2 hours. And that's like, it's time gated beyond that. Like if you really wanted to know life it, I guess you could just put a timer on it, make sure you have every channel timed, and go and kill them on respawn and get more money. But I couldn't see myself doing that, So I'm going from like a frame of perspective of that's what, if I really wanted to make money, that's what I would be doing. Twice per day, getting my kills. Now, again, not so much depending on how many people watch this video, but people will be talking about that. It's going to come up. People will figure it out. And it's going to be grinded out. And very quickly, people are going to finish getting their free pen, and then they won't want sharps anymore, and the price of sharps will drop to the gutter. Caphras stones are kind of a good example of that. They used to be worth 4 or 5 million, and now they're worth under 1 million, or under 2 million, and they've dropped down to basically 1 million each, depending on supply and demand, obviously. Within the limits that the developers allow people to sell, they've been sitting like hundreds of thousands of them at like 1.3 million, which is the lowest they can go. So, you know, keep that in mind. But stuff like that, it exists. The other 99% of life skilling is not rewarding whatsoever. You can grow your crops. I have max fences still rented. If I keep these out and I'm actually harvesting them as soon as they finish growing, I think I make maybe 100 million per day by harvesting them as soon as they finish growing. It's negligible amounts of money. I can make 100 million in like 10 minutes by doing a circle grind at this, the small circle, like the easy grind at Runros. I make 100 million. So, and it's like 10 minutes. So you're planning your whole day around the farms to get 100 million is just completely, don't do it. Please, if you play the game, don't do that. Unless you just really like the farming mechanic. It's also a very basic mechanic. You go to your crops, you set your workers to guard your crops, they prune them and get rid of the pests, and then you show back up in a couple hours and harvest them. It's not exactly Farm Simulator 2015 or 20, wherever the Farm Simulator game was. I don't remember the year, but it's not that. It's just a very basic system. Going around and picking various crops and mushrooms and whatnot, like, again, that's another thing. I'll just go ahead and cover it here. If you're still insisting that you're going to play the game, if you want to use gathering to make money, I believe, again, it's been a while since I've been there. I believe there it is. I can actually find it this way. It's weird. My mouse is, I think it's just the client is not responsive right now for some reason. I believe it's right here. It's probably this little area right here. I was looking for where this would cross the river. So, like, across this little area, you're going to find mushrooms, truffle mushrooms, and they're among one of the best gathering resources for profit. They're still not particularly good nowadays, but if you want to gather and you want to make money, you can do that. You can go and gather the trees that are over here. There'll be some burned out trees, and you can get some essence from those and sell that for money. Like, there's options. You're going to be making effectively irrelevant amount of gains. Just keep that in mind. I recommend against doing that. But if you're insisting on being a life skiller and starting from scratch, those are some of the earliest ways you can make money. Both of these, the trees and the mushrooms, require a relatively low mastery or gathering skill because the amount of items you can get is already so low that multiplying it by 20% is less than 1. Like, if you have very high mastery, you might get a maximum roll of like 8 instead of, I think, 4 or 5. I think 5 is like the minimum if you have tools and everything. So you get a maximum level 5 or you get a maximum level 8 with billions and billions, actually trillions at this point. Trillions of gear. If you have a full set of perfect gear. So the returns are not worth it. The little snake things that you can go and farm, they have no requirement. Like, you can go there with the weakest gun, and it'll just take you a little longer to kill them. Which, since you're carefully not one-shotting them, you want to actually weaken them up and then work on the other ones, the clones. It's actually better to go in there with an artisan rifle at the most. You honestly use a professional or lower. They're giving us a free gun right now, actually. If you do join the game, you'll get this gun, and this is plenty. Like, this is enough that you can go and kill them, and it has no requirements at all. So, yeah. But that pretty much covers the life skill element. Like, it's not good. It's the new state requires you the new gear status with the pre-owned accessories going to a 10 state with a much higher investment per attempt is bad. Like, there's been no change to make that profit return worthwhile. And that would be the biggest point to make. So my closing argument for why you probably shouldn't play Black Desert, even if you're a veteran, even if you're in my position, I shouldn't play it either, but sunken cost fallacy is a powerful thing. Once you're already invested in something, there's so many easy rationalizations of like, well, I already have the 15,000 hours of progress and I have the money to do whatever I want to do. So why not try out the new character and see if it's like, it just suddenly makes the game amazing, and then every time it doesn't. Like, it's cool, it's something different, but it's fun for a week, and then if that, it's fun for a week, if not less, and then I go back to just AFK fishing or just not even logging in. But if you are going to play, just be aware, everything you work towards is a negative gain. You're going to invest into your gear. After, like, you get a free set of gear the game just hands you when you start the game. It's going to give you some pen, Black Star. I think you'll still get 2 of them now. You could have gotten 3, but now you'll get 2. You're going to get a free Dream Horse, or not a Dream, a free. I think you'll get a free Dream Horse and a free Tier 10 horse. This is the Tier 10. I have the other one in the box. I just haven't even bothered to open it. It's there. They're very time gated to make them the normal way, so getting a free one is cool and all. The gear they give you, they're going to give you a set of Tet boss gear. They'll give you a couple pieces of Pen boss gear for just doing quests. All of that they give you for free, great, it's cool. Grab it, play the game with that. If you're trying to upgrade your gear beyond that point, you're going to be spending, again, tens of billions minimum. Generally speaking, closer to like 20 to 30 billion per slot of gear. Again, I've already covered the accessories that are a little bit different, but like on average, the lowest you're going to be looking at is probably 10 to 20 billion. And what that's going to do for you is nothing. It'll unlock the ability to grind slightly different areas where you make the same money you were already making where you were grinding before, if not less. Now, if you get to the absolute best gear in the game, so we're talking over $1 trillion in investment, once you've put $1 trillion silver into your character, you're going to see a return increase of maybe 300%. So 1 trillion, grinding at a rate of like 1 to 2 billion per hour. So 500 hours minimum of just hard grinding. And now you can finally make 300% more returns than you were making when you started the game. And life skills are even worse than that. Life skills, their returns, other than fishing, fish again. If you just care about the money, fish your way to the end game. I don't recommend it for the health of your PC. You're gonna lose a couple $100 PC just to hardware damage over long term running the PC for this. It's not worth it. I mean, if you have a PC you don't care about, the power, then I guess sure. But like, if you have a main PC that you use the game, I don't think it's worth the damage to your components to run the game in the background. It's not a super high intense game. It's using a very small amount. Even that is still going to wear your components out. Just having them on nonstop is going to wear them. So, and this is from someone who does have a PC that I leave on almost all the time because I'm either working or sometimes I will be online and AFK fishing. Again, I shouldn't do it. Like, I do it despite the fact that I shouldn't do it, because a lot of times I'll be listening to music or something, or compiling videos. I'll be doing something that requires my PC to be on anyway. And even then, I don't like running Black Desert alongside rendering or compiling or any of the things my PC is already doing, because that's already a workload, and I'm adding an extra workload on top of that, which is just going to wear out my components sooner. And I don't want to replace my PC because it's a pretty solid unit, and I'm happy with it, and I'd like it to last a decent amount of time. If you're not in that position, then the AFK content might be up your alley. Realistically, maybe look into the Blade and Soul remake instead. It's a remaster, remake, something or other. Blade and Soul Neo is what it's called. A lot of people will say like it's pay to win. Oh, it's gonna be pay to win. It's from NCSoft. Well, I need to cover one more subject before I fully sign off on this one. Black Desert is straight pay to win. Like, as pay to win as it gets. It cannot be more pay to win than this game is pay to win. That you'll find so many people. The argument for pay to win usually hits chat. It might have hit chat while I'm talking. It usually hits chat at least once a week. And there'll be people that, oh no, you can earn everything in the game by playing it. And I hope most of the people that will see this video are at the point that they understand that being able to earn something over thousands of hours versus being able to buy it over dozens of hours of salary, that is not an argument against pay to win. And I'm just going to really quickly cover this. There's several elements that are pay to win. For life skilling, now life skilling is bad, so it's kind of paying to lose at this point. But for life skilling, you have, I believe this is one of them. No, this one's, I mean, it's very good. Mount EXP is good for the mount leveling process, but you don't make good money off that. But this one, I was pretty sure it was this one, allows you to process items from storage. This dramatically increases your AFK processing time. You'll be able to process much more items. It also has the success rate bonus that you can see there. The fishing clothes, we did actually get a free version of that. If you didn't get it, then sucks to be you. But it allows you to actually do ocean content without being awful. The speed boost and everything is huge. There's a cooking one and an alchemy one. Both of them are functionally the same. More EXP, and then the 2-second timer is big. Again, there's not a lot of money to be made in that. Oh, and all costumes can be melted down for Cron Stones, which you use that to enhance your gear. All your gear, doesn't matter what gear you're enhancing now. Like, basically all the gear in the game requires Cron Stones to enhance all the in-game gear. And you buy them for $22, and then you melt them down and attempt to enhance your gear. It's pay to win, it's expensive, but I mean, it's how the game is designed for you to achieve your high level gear. Grinding will take years. Buying will take, honestly, less than a month's worth of salary if you're working a decent job. So, and I'm saying like less of a month's worth of your excessive salary after you cover your essentials. So like, if you just really wanted to buy your in-game gear, it's definitely better than spending years trying to grind up. Unless you really enjoy the grind cycle, in which case it's not really lost time, it's invested time. The pet system, you can get a decent amount of pets in-game now. This used to be like a really big deal that you had to get pets. There are still some pets that are very important. Some of them you can't even buy most of the time. The hedgehog, again, grinding versus life skilling is less important now, but the hedgehog made it so you had a chance to get double returns from life skilling from specifically gathering. You can only buy it during events, and it's usually sold at a premium unless it's a discount event like Black Friday. There's a couple versions of it now, but yeah, that's a pay-to-win element. You'll get enough pets to have. Eventually, you'll get enough free pets that you'll have some T4s. They're also required for looting. All of my pets are free, but I also have the pets of years and years and years of free pets. This is the only one that I bought, and it's because I had some pearls left over from the Berserk collab. And again, sunken cost fallacy. I really wanted that Berserk set, and I had a little bit of pearls, and this is one of the gathering boosting pets. And I could technically upgrade it to 4, I just haven't had a reason to. Like, I have any amount of pets in this list that I can use to upgrade it to 4. All of my very pervy pet names. These are very innocent pet names that just might happen to overlap with certain concepts that are less innocent. It's not me being pervy, it's everyone else being pervy. I don't know what's wrong with you people. But the pets are required to play the game. That's an important point to make. So that's the pay-to-win elements. There are a few other things, like I have a very good fairy. You have to really try to get anything close to this without paying. And it ends up being a lot of money if you try to pay for a fairy. Like, generally, this is the skill that you're going to try to get if you're not going to pay. You just have to get this one. It has to learn it on its own. It can't learn any of the lower versions. It has to be this one because this 2-second cooldown aligns with potion use limitations. So you're perfectly auto-drinking potions as fast as possible as long as you have that skill. All of these are luxury skills. Again, I just got really lucky on mine, and then they gave out a couple. This is the first Radiant that I got, and they gave out a couple reset things, and I was able to reset carry into my kit. I already have all of these. So, you can be luck carried, or you can spend hundreds and, if not more than hundreds of dollars to try to force roll the one you want. I'll just show that real quick. If you go in here and you click on this, it will take, I don't have any. So yeah, it'll take 5 orbs, I believe, if I'm understanding this correctly. So 5 orbs per reset. You can see the percent chances over here. Obviously, the chances of getting these ones are the lowest because they are the highest grade, and they go down as they go up. Actually, no. They might have boosted this because it was a really bad system. People rightfully were complaining about the fact that it was such a low chance to get a perfect fairy. Even considering that, you're still looking at, like, I'm guessing it would probably be 18, maybe 19% if I didn't have the 5. So, just real quick to... So, whew. It's not unlimited. Only 3 times, and then you gotta go with the actual price. Eek. $10 per reset. Yeah, you're gonna probably spend a couple $100 to get a perfect fairy if you really want one. You're probably gonna spend $100 just to get one fairy that actually has continuous care and sheer, which are the 2 that matter. Continuous care is a little iffy. The new potions kind of make continuous care much worse, but then they'll probably add more potions that make it better. They're kind of going back and forth on that. Depends on which patch you're on, whether or not continuous care is good or bad. It's always decent. It's always something you don't have to focus on. Continuous care is You'll notice I have a crappy potion on right now. I actually literally can. I have, on this character, I have 100 of these. This is to make it into the perfect potion. On another character, I have over 100. And another character, I have over 100. I just don't want to get the non-ancient one. You have a chance to get the ancient drop, and mine is ancient. I sold my old one that wasn't ancient because I got the second one. I thought I'd be able to get the third one, and turns out it wasn't that easy, but yeah, it's the way care works is I can toggle any of these I want, and the game will automatically consume these buffs as soon as I need them, as long as I turn it on up here. So if I'm AFK fishing, I can turn on a bunch of fishing buffs, and it'll use all those fishing buffs as long as I have them in my inventory automatically. It's a nice skill to have. It used to be like really big because elixirs were huge, and then they merged all the elixirs into one super elixir, so it's really not that hard to hit the one super elixir button every hour. So it doesn't save you that much inputs, but depending on which direction we go going forward, it may become more or less valuable. But yeah, that's the pay to win elements. They're bad. Like I can't express this enough. This game is as pay to win as it gets. They try to like band-aid the pay to win to be like, no, look, you can get your pets for free in game. Yeah, and what do I do before I have my pets? Well, you can buy them off of the market. And the number one way to make money is to grind, which requires you to actually loot the enemy drops. And I'm just going to showcase this before I call this one good. I'm going to go over here because I want a lot of enemies, just so that you can see how the game is supposed to be played before you get your pets. If you have already played the game, you already know what you're about to see. The most efficient grinding in any game ever. MapleStory? Oh no. MapleStory just, they weren't efficient enough with the way you have to loot in MapleStory. No, it's bad. You have to have pets, is what I will preface this with. If you don't have pets, you're not going to do any grinding PvE for profit. They do band-aid the pets. Like I said, they offer free ones. Like all of these are free, or were free. Some of them can be sold, some of them can't. And I have even more on other characters. Like I've got pets. I got pets everywhere. I've been playing the game for years. They keep giving them out for free. You have a chance to get them, and I do the event content sometimes, and then I get more pets. And I don't have anything to do with them because I already have my 5, but you won't get a lot of these 5. Is something that should also be pointed out. I got a bunch of 5 or tier 4 pets, not tier 5. I have a bunch of tier 4 pets that were just released tier 4. Like I didn't have to upgrade them or anything. You will have to go through the upgrade system. And that means buying many, many, many pets and fusing them together. And it's a very big difference between having pets that are tier 1 and tier 5, or tier 4. There is a tier 5. It's just, you don't actually use it. So yeah, my pets are all not fed right now. Actually, they are fed. I need to turn them off. I forgot that I... So assuming you don't have any pets, let's go ahead and just get some loot on the ground. Now, if I don't have pets, and most enemies drop loot on every kill, these ones do not. Every time I want to loot something, I had to press R. I had to stand totally still, press R, kneel down, press R, kneel down. If I'm moving, I won't be able to loot. This is not having pet life. Like I'm hitting R while it's not looting. It's just I was moving still, so I wasn't in a position to loot. What's that? Oh, just another mushroom. And see, it gets even better. For mobs like this, if you have pets, they'll automatically loot them. And you won't have to worry about this. But if you're trying to mash R, I'm going to sit here and go into this menu over and over and over because they can also be gathered after you loot them. So yeah, it's awful. You need pets. And each pet is, let's just go ahead and price this out real quick so that you can get an expectation of your cost. $11 per pet. If you want to be budget, I mean, these ones are all better than these ones. These ones are cheaper because they have worse skills. These ones actually have skills that provide some sort of value. And then the really good ones are like usually 16 bucks. Now, I'm not 100% sure on that because I've never bought pets. But I do know that these ones are like dime a dozen, dirt cheap, and they only do like detect hostility and crap like that. Stuff that doesn't really help you in terms of the skill effects. So $16, and I can show this right now. Again, this has gone on a bit longer for the pay to win elements, but it's just important to know these things if you're going to get into a game. So this one, I can upgrade this one whenever I want to tier 4. I'll do these ones first just to show. Do I have to? Do I have to? I do not. What do I have to of? Okay, I got 2 of these. So if I merge these, I have a 45% chance to get a tier 2, a 55% chance to get a tier 3. Getting the tier 3 is not that hard. That's why this one's tier 3. It only got merged once. I got the 50 or the 45. I got the higher grade with just a normal grade 1. Now if I put these in here, I just have an 85% chance to get the same tier. I have a 50% chance of getting the same tier, just losing those 2 pets. I got a 35% chance of getting the same tier. Now, if I dump in another tier 3, now I can guarantee that I'm going to get a high tier. So, if we say each of these will be generous, let's say each of these are just 2 pets. So, you have the initial pet, $16, $11, $11. These were free, but we'll just say if you're not going to have the free pets, and then each of these are $22. So you're looking at $100, give or take, just round up, because this one actually is 2 as well. So you're looking at $100. We'll be conservative with the estimate. $100 per pet. That's a lot. It's a lot of money per pet. Like, and that's to start playing the game. If you're going with the free ones, yeah, they loot, but does it say? It'd be nice if it just said their loot speed, but I don't think it does. Anywhere? It does not. So, I believe their loot speed is like half or less of what it should be when they're tier 1. Like, it's better than manual looting, sure, but when you have the max number of tier 4s, I think it's 5 right now. So yeah, when you have 5, it's $500. $500 to like start playing the game, and the difference between having 5 tier 4s and having 5 tier 1s is night and day. Like, you're gonna have to stop. You won't have to manually loot, that's a major improvement. Like, don't undersell that. Like, not having to stop and manually loot it's a big improvement. But you're gonna have to stop and wait for your pets to finish looting between big packs, and it feels awful. You basically need 5 tier 4s. Technically, you need 4 tier 4s and 1 tier 5. So, as I said, there's a tier 5, it's a whole system. You don't actually fuse them for tier 5, you promote them, and it's a quest. You can only have 1 tier 5 out at a time. That's why I haven't bothered with it. It increases all of the loot speed of the other pets, but I don't loot, or I don't grind enough that I've felt the need to make one. And I figure eventually I will make a tier 5, and I will make a tier 5 out of something that I actually want to always have out, like my Pudgy Llama. Something that will just kind of always be in my pet setup, just in case I happen to gather something. But yeah, that's a steep investment to start playing the game. And what I would compare that to, again, MapleStory. MapleStory, the looting system is awful. Like, if you've played MapleStory, you know. It functions on the same logic. You get a pet, the pet will then loot for you, and now the looting system is great. But you only need one pet first. Yes, MapleStory has the whole thing where like your pets are temporary, and to get a permanent one, you have to buy it during an event. It's usually like $100 to buy a permanent pet. Well, back in the day, it used to be $100. Now, and here's the big thing: for $100 in MapleStory, your pet will loot everything on the map. You basically get item vac for the entire map. As of the last time I played MapleStory, which is a good couple years ago, item vac for the entire map, and that was only $100. And you needed one pet, and you were done. All your loot got picked up. You never had to worry about leaving loot behind. $100. $500, and you're still going to be worried about leaving loot behind. Like, I would say that MapleStory's looting was worse, because let's say you're farming in MapleStory and you have a big pile of loot, and then something good drops on that pile. You have to stand there and just wait until you loot everything to reach the thing you want to loot. But in a sense, it's actually better because you at least know you need to stop and loot. If I'm doing a rotation in this and say a depot ring drops, depot ring, whatever they call it, I'll just call it a depot ring because I don't care. But let's say one of those drops. That's 500 million money. Like, you're interested in that pickup. You want to get it. In MapleStory, you'll see that drop and you're like, oh, I better go pick that up. In this, you have no idea what that white line is. It could be just some trash loot for like 20,000, or it could be a ring for 500 million. So you just have to manually pick up all the loot, or make sure your pets are always picking up all the loot, because anything they leave behind could be that one thing you were trying to get. Like, I have this mentality that I've probably left multiple, given how many pities I've gotten. I've probably left multiple of the ancient potion piece at runners. And I started grinding on a character that I was efficient on, and I was going too fast for my pets, and they didn't pick it up, and it just despawned. I never got it. There's no indication that there's a legendary item drop. It's just a white line like everything else until you pick it up. So it's a major limit in the way that the loot works in this game. And with that, I think I've pretty much covered everything. Someone did just mention in chat the Rift bosses. No, they're talking about Rift. I don't know what Rift is, honestly. I feel like I should know what it is. Nothing come to mind, but there are Rift bosses, and those are another thing. It's a solo boss that you fight, and it actually does take into account your gear. And when you have good bonus damage, critical damage, and whatnot slotted in, you'll feel stronger when you fight them. Like, sure, they're one thing that like your gear actually feels impactful on, that is a boss. The problem is you fight them once per week, and then when you're at the gear level I'm at, you basically one-shot them. Like, they spawn out of their rift portal, and then you just get behind them and use one combo on them, and they die. So that is one other thing that you can work towards. It's not really working towards. I can kill them almost as quickly on my pure season gear character as I can on my best character. And it's just about the fact that the only part of your damage increases that actually apply to it are a total of like 35%. So mostly class, little bit gear. So in closing, I highly recommend, I've said it before, I'll say it one last time, I highly recommend you don't play Black Desert. It's not worth the investment. The best case scenario is that you play it and you realize it's bad and then you don't play it anymore. The worst case scenario is you play it and you get to the point where sunken cost starts to stick in, and then you're like, oh, well, once I get this next piece of gear, it's going to make the game really enjoyable. Oh, once I get this dream horse or this mythic horse, which you'll get for free now, but once I level this thing perfectly, it'll make the game really enjoyable, and it just won't. I will leave you with the most fun I have had in this game in years. I had a decent amount of fun early on. If you played early on, it's a decent game. It has a lot of potential. There are private servers out there. I am not recommending anyone plays on a private server, of course, for, you know, legal reasons. I definitely don't recommend people play on private servers. I may happen to showcase private servers, but I don't recommend anyone play on them. The private servers might actually fix a lot of the issues. Considering how far I got in the mainline server, I have no real interest myself in trying them. But this is the most fun I've had in years. And it's just for the novelty of being able to run across the water. Like, it's not that, like, this horse is suddenly really amazing and, well, it's not very nice. Over here. It's not that the horse is, like, really amazing and it's something that, like, totally changes the game. It's just the novelty. And that's what BDO is. It's a novelty. They didn't ever develop any of the strengths of the game. They just put novelties all over the place. Let's go and make a big ship. I will show that as my final send-off, actually, just because it's funny. Where is... The game is nothing but novelty. It's the idea that you're going to get something that looks unique, but when you actually play with that something, it's not unique at all. It's just more of the same. Now you have a bigger boat, and functionally it's the same as your smaller boat. Nothing really changed, except for the size of the boat that actually gets downplayed because the way they decided to balance the, I need to take some money. Because the way they decided to balance the sea content, you don't actually get a bigger boat. And again, that really showcases what I mean by novelty. When you get on your boat, your character gets shrunk down so that your character seems like they're on a bigger boat, but the actual space the boat takes up is very similar to the last boat. Comparative size-wise, it's not that big of an improvement. You're going from... The game seems like you're going to go from like a rowboat to a galley, and in reality you go from a rowboat to a slightly bigger rowboat. And then when you actually control the boat, it's just more of the same in terms of the mechanics of how it controls. My my costume's doing a thing right now. Yeah, this is my favorite character. As you can see, it's a beautiful ship. Truly a thing of wonders. It's amazing. 10 out of 10. So, never mind what I said. This is the best game you'll ever play, and you definitely need to play it. Unfortunately, this ship is totally broken. Generally speaking, the ships don't totally break when you get them above the ground and you can actually sell them over the land. However, because this ship is actually on top of that other ship, and that's why it's up here, it can't move. It's, as you can see, please try again in a moment. I will be permanently stuck in that mode. But, yeah, like the novelty of, I have this ship that's floating in the air. It's great, 10 out of 10. Functionally, I can't even use the ship anymore. which that's the whole game in a nutshell. It has so many things that feel like they will be this enjoyable gameplay experience, and then when you actually get them, functionally they don't do anything. The combat on this ship compared to the other ship, it's virtually the same. Nothing has changed at all, other than the fact that this ship does slightly more damage than the other ship. Its maneuverability is effectively the same. It's a little bit faster than the past ships. It seems like it's so big while I'm on it, but if I wasn't in the sky, you would see that this ship is almost the exact same size as my Vettel ship, which is the first ship you get. Like, it's just a random ship that I left on this character. And it's basically the same size as that massive ship, quote, quote. They just create the illusion of a larger ship. And the reason that matters is because part of the appeal of a large ship is actually having a large ship in combat. And you'll see when I jump off the boat. Suddenly, I'm much bigger. Now, as soon as I get back on the boat, I'm tiny again. Functionally, they're the same size. And that's done to make it easier to handle navigation. It's a shortcut. It's a band-aid. The problem is, it takes away any of the sense of progression. You didn't go from a rowboat to a galleon. You went from a rowboat to a fancier rowboat. You didn't go from a really average horse. The starting horses now are basically T8. They give them the lead candy. You don't go from a T8 to a Dream or a T10. I mean, they gave out free Dreams and now they give out free T10s. But so I would compare the Dream to the T10. Yes, that water horse can run across the water. It feels good in the sense of it's like something you can do that you could not do with the previous horse. Functionally, where do you use that? You can't take it in the ocean. Remember that, it can't go in the ocean. So it can go in like this little outer areas of the ocean. It actually can't even go here. It can maybe go to here, and it can go from between these islands. There's nothing here that you need to have a horse for. The most interesting thing you can do is you can ride from here to here and go to a low-level grinding spot that no one goes to anymore. Like, where's the value? From going from that horse to the one I had before, I actually had 2 dimes that I fused together. And I still have my select horses, so I can technically get all the mythicals if I want without any expense. Like, just because the way the map is designed, if you're using a dime and you're going from here to here, there is not a single point that you can benefit from the ability to walk on the water. If you're going from here all the way to, we'll say, here, not a single point where you benefit from the water walking. Like, there's water, sure, but because the way the map is designed, all of this is like walled off. So if you were to, for some reason, jump down here, you can't get back up over here, not easily. And you'll just waste so much time, it was easier to just run through the roads and get there. Now, if you do go through the desert, that's the one area where the T10 actually is more noticeable because it gives you total immunity to the desert debuffs. There's no reason to go to the desert, but I mean, it's the one thing that it does. It's cool to be able to run on the water. Functionally, it serves no purpose. It's just niche. It's cool to have the big ship. Functionally, it serves no purpose. It's just niche. Like, yes, it can kill the ocean content faster than the smaller ship. But the ocean content already gets one-shot by the smaller ship. So one-shotting it harder for these, and these are the only ones that are worth farming. Like, you can actually farm the Crocs and get a ship upgrade that gets you the final improvement for your ship. It's not worth the effort. You can sit here and farm these, or you can farm the smaller mobs here, not the boss, but you can farm the normal mobs, and you can just, in a shorter time span, get the coins you need from the drops they sell to just buy that item that you could go and farm from the harder mobs that you actually need the damage to farm. So functionally, if you're going for actual gains, it's no improvement. It's just a clunkier ship that looks nicer but does the same thing your old ship did. Your gear, it's, again, like, it looks prettier to look at the full set of pen gear, the full Black Star or Sovereign or whatever the highest gear set is at the time. It looks nicer to see it, but then you go and hit mobs that you've been fighting forever, and if you didn't one-shot them before you put the Sovereign on, you probably won't one-shot them after you put the Sovereign on. Even if the Sovereign gave you 100 more AP, it won't make you feel any stronger. It's all just cosmetic. Any function you gain is so limited in its actual value that it doesn't change the way the game plays. Everything just boils down to you're chasing artificial growth, artificial progress. They're working very hard to keep you from actually changing the way the game works. And by that I mean, this ship on paper is significantly slower than my other ship. But in terms of actual speed, they can travel the same distances in very similar times. Like, the other ship is only probably 10 or 15% faster in terms of travel. And that kind of just, why are you going to spend for that ship? You can now buy them, but before you could buy them, you had to spend months of bartering and sea content to be able to make one. All for a 15% reduction in travel time and content that you're never going to touch again, because the only reason you were going to the ocean was to get the ship so that you could blank. You just, there's no purpose. If we had quality ocean content, like, I'm just going to close out with some simple fixes. Now, our newest ocean content, I actually think there's like a mermaid that you could fight that can give you some just garbage. It's worthless, but relevant newest content is either this or the Crocs, which are here. That's our newest sea content. Both of those are from like 2019. It's been over 5 years since we got these content zones, or at least something close to that. So you spend months working for a boat to go and do the content that already was there, and then everything else in the ocean, like you see all these mob zones, they're only there to do your daily quests to get your next ship, which you already have. There's no, like, to fix this, maybe take an area like this one, or like the Black Rusts. There was a point where they actually were using the Black Rusts to create a border around the map. So if you went out, you would start encountering Black Rusts and they would sink your ship, rather than you just now had an invisible barrier. But if they had like this area with, I believe this is Black Rusts. No, maybe it is Black Rusts. So if you had like this area where there's a lot of Black Rusts and there used to be like sunken ships all over, and then you had like a ghost pirate ship grinding zone, and the only way you could really realistically make it through the surrounding area of Black Rusts was to have the Carrack. So you work, you get your Carrack, and then it's like, all right, I can go to this zone now. I can take my party to this zone. We can reach this zone, and we can grind like a character zone, and then also maybe past that you can have the ghost ships that are actually built up to be fought with the Carrack. So there's like a player grinding zone as well as a ship grinding zone. Something like that could make so much difference in the value of the Carrack. The value of the best ship. But because we don't have anything like that, it's just novelty. You get it to slightly improve your ability to do things that you didn't want to do other than to get it. You get the horse to be able to run, and that's another thing. If the horse could run on the water, you could have it so you could now use the tier 10 dime, the water horse, to maybe be able to run out to this area that's protected by the black rusts to make it difficult to navigate. And because the horse is faster than the boat, the horse can just run past them and make it to the grinding spot for the human grinding. Suddenly, rather than a novelty thing that it's cool, like I like the idea, but it serves no purpose, now it's something that actually serves a major purpose. You get that horse and you circumvent the need to have the ship to effectively get in there. And it also adds that level of you can try to get in there with one of the older ships. And like maybe you can make it. Or maybe your ship gets sunk, but you make it to the island, so you're actually where you want to be to grind with your character. And then the Carrack is just more of like an improvement on the ability to get in and get out. If they added more content to the desert, there would be a reason for the dime and also the water horse because it serves the same purpose. But the newest content we have is Dehkia Lantern of this area, and it's just an old area with slightly buffed up mods. Like the mobs are now stronger, and they require higher AP and DP to fight, and they give a little bit better loot. But I mean, and by a little bit, it's a lot better loot. But like, you have to go all the way to the desert to get over there to fight them to get improved loot, and you could just be farming somewhere lower for 30% less loot, but having no risk of death and very relaxed grind. Like the things that they're missing are not super complicated. You need to have a galaxy brain to know how to fix. It's just that I realistically don't think they'll ever give them to us. I don't think they're ever going to direct the resources to develop those kind of content improvements. Because I mean, the thing with this idea of having like an area that's kind of protected by AI, by mobs, that you need the Carrack to reach or the water horse to reach. It also kind of requires them to improve the entire water system, and so that your cannons don't get washed underneath the water, and then you hit the water, and it just stops your cannon shots immediately. Like they need to fix a lot of the core problems, and I don't think they're going to do that. And because they're not going to do that, the idea of putting content that requires the game to function the way it's intended to function is just expecting a lot. I mean, when they added this area, they were saying that we were going to get some grind zones, and as of yet, as far as I can tell, there are no grind zones in all of this chunk of the map. It's all just there's some hunting zones, the sniper zones, but like in terms of grinding, there's nothing here. All of this is basically dead content. There's bosses. You just path between the bosses, fight the bosses. There's some story content, but again, early on we had Port Rat, and that was the whole, like, that was what this continent was before it became this. And Port Rat at least had like a trading gimmick that you needed to go over there. You didn't need to go over there, but you could go over there to get trading resources, take them back, and sell them for a large gain once per day. This functionally serves no purpose. It's an area you have to go to get sovereign weapons, and that's it. It's one of the biggest motivations to have a boat, or it was. The well system also kind of made boats irrelevant. In general, it's a great quality of life change, but it also came at the expense of value of resources. Even if they put mob zones over here, it kind of serves no purpose because you can just use the wells to get over here, and there's no reason to take a boat. Like, what they would really need to do to get the ocean content feeling more engaging is to just add areas that are difficult to reach without a boat. I mean, there are areas that are difficult to reach without a boat. Like, all of this is difficult to reach, but the problem is all of it is so outdated, and even then, it's not really difficult to reach without a boat. in the sense of like you need a good boat. It's just you can get a rowboat and you can take it out there and reach the islands. Like there's no incentive to increase your ship. And because we lack any type of like ocean PvP, you can sink other players' ships. To be fair, you can do it. It serves no purpose. It's just a dick move. You see someone trying to do bartering, and you're just like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to red on this person, sink their ship, and they're going to lose half of their bartering resources because I don't know. I don't get anything out of it. I actually lose karma, and then I get punished for doing that. But screw this guy in particular. Like, it's. To compare it to ArcAge, ArcAge also had a lot of dead ocean content. There's just nothing there. But the thing ArcAge had was the player-driven PvP, where your goal was to, like, I'm going to take crates from this island to this island, and we're going to make money. And someone else is like, oh, this guy's running trade runs. I'll go ahead and sink his ship, take his trade run, and turn him in and make profit. You don't have any of that. So you have to do it with AI. You have to do it with PvE content. Like, that's what just, if you want the content to have a reason to exist, you have to actually make that reason. The other thing with the horses is, like, the tier 10 Doom. That's one of those slap in the face design choices. I guess if you like PvP, it might have more value, but even then, if you like PvP, most of the people that you're going to be playing with in-game PvP are going to have their own tier 10 Doom. So the whole trade-off of the tier 10 Doom is that you can summon 2 more mini Dooms that are much weaker than the one that you were riding. So if someone has their own, they're better off riding their own. I think from the last time I heard people talking about it, I didn't go for the tier 10 Doom, so I don't know this firsthand, but the last time I heard people talking about it, if you have a normal tier 9 Doom, which you got for free, everyone had a chance to get them for free, it's better than a tier 10 Doom clone. So you have that system, which could be valuable. But because there's so little incentive to party outside of PvP, and in PvP, people are going to have so much incentive to have the best possible mount, not be borrowing one of their teammates' cloned weaker versions. They'll have their own Doom, or a tier 10 Doom. It serves no functional purpose. Like, there's no scenario where, like, say, you're fighting a boss. You join together as a party, you're fighting a boss over here, and then, like, you get the boss to a phase, and then you need to run after it and go and fight it over here. And in that scenario, you can be playing with newer players, so they don't have their high-level horses. They gave away tier 10s for free now, so that argument is now null and void. But in the past, before that happened, you could spawn out your tier 10 clones. They could get on those clones, and you could take a full party, and you could travel wherever you need to go and complete your boss run, complete whatever you're doing. Like, if there was content that required party-wide mobility that was scaled at a level that lower-level players who didn't have access to those things would be taking part in, that could be a really great horse. But because they didn't do that, it's got a novelty skill that, like, sure, for fun, you could have your friends ride it, but functionally, you're better off if everyone has their own. The tier 10 Pegasus. The map is not designed in a way to actually support the gliding ability. Like, it's great when it works. You get a good glide and it's great. You cover a huge distance, but there's so few times that the map is level enough that you can actually benefit from the glide, or you're going downhill so you can benefit from the glide, that the tier 9 is good enough. Like, the only reason you're getting the tier 10 is because you can, not because it's a massive improvement. There are areas where it is a large improvement. There's a reason people mostly agree. There are some people who disagree, but, like, for the most part, the community agrees that the water horse is the most important tier 10 horse. And then, what I already said, it is a novelty. There's nowhere you can really use it that it's going to change much. But the fact that it always has the option to walk over a little bit of water and it doesn't drown if you leave it in water, gives it more value than any of the other options. And it's very little value. It's a very small amount of value. You're competing on millimeters of value across the board. But there you go. The potential future value is what you're kind of going by at this point. If you can glide really well, you're never going to be able to glide out to some island that has something worthwhile to go to. You'll be able to run across the water, but you won't be able to glide to it. The Doom, we just don't see a point for the most part, and we as the player base, there is no point where we're going to be like, okay, we really need everyone to have a horse, but everyone won't have a horse, so here, this guy gets a tier 10 Doom, and then he'll be able to give 2 other people horses, up to 4 other people horses. They're giving them away for free. There's no scenario where people don't have horses when they literally log into the game for the first time, and the game just goes, here you go, kind sir, have 1 tier 10 horse, the best available. And since they don't copy your horse's stats correctly, not really correctly, but perfectly, it's not even like you can have a really good tier 10 Doom and then copy your really good horse and then people get S rank stats. Like, they still come with C rank stats. So the worst possible horse someone could have made for themselves is going to be better than the one you can make with the clones. Like, it's just so many good ideas that they don't do anything with. So it just becomes novelty. I know I've said that a couple times now, but it's just like, I don't know how to express it better, unfortunately. I don't want people to be jumping into the game because I don't think the game is going to ever really address these issues. I think, and this is where I really will close the video, I think this game will be announcing EOS within the next year or 2. And if they don't announce it, it's going to be so obvious that, similar to older games, everyone knows that EOS is being planned if they don't announce it. I would like to be wrong. I would like them to make some drastic improvements and make this a competitive game in the market. But I just don't see it happening. There are ways they can fix things, but they're doing nothing to reach those as far as we can see. And even on their announcements of what they're changing, they announce the pre-owned accessories, and then they say, oh, we're going to address the issue with... the last point I will make. They announced that they were increasing the mastery cap as a way to address issues with life skills. Now, here's just a really important bit about that. Mastery has no effect on trading. Mastery has basically no effect on processing. It does, but it doesn't. You can do batch processing, but the thing is, with the amount of mastery you need to actually increase the quantity due to diminishing returns, it basically does nothing because you get enough for free that actually investing in mastery isn't worth it. It's not like you're going to go from making 30 to making 300 by investing $1 billion in mastery. You're going to go from making 30 to making 60. And then not even that much for $1 billion. Training is another one. All mastery does is increase your mount EXP percent by a very negligible amount. You're already at 200, 300% mount EXP when you're using your buffs to train your mounts, so another 3 or 4% more is irrelevant. Increasing the cap does nothing to fix these issues. And that's just what we see across the board. They're pushing numbers up as if it fixes issues that are not related to the numbers. And players are catching on. Players are realizing that everything they work towards never feels satisfying because the core gameplay loop doesn't support it actually being satisfying. So, through everything I've said in this video, The one point I would say to take away from it is Black Desert in its current state, not counting private servers and not counting past points of development, is not worth your time. Invest it into a game where you see a greater return. Invest it into a game where your progress actually means something. With that, later.